That's it.
Half of these are duplicates anyway. They send more darn paperwork than
Oh,
we send.
well, I got nothing else to do there.
No.
Just see, found my little calendar and the one date here was wrong.
Okay. So it's the 11th day of May 2010 at 15:07 hours. 07. And Levine, I know you did this for me earlier, but can you spell your first name again?
Levine.
Alice was your middle?
Right.
Turner. And today we're talking about criminal harassment, right? That's the term I'll use for it.
Okay.
Your date of birth was 1960.
64, December 7th.
Okay. So as I told you before, I'll just get you to start at the beginning. I know you gave me a lot of history earlier. Some of it's going to be a recap, but we'll go a little bit more in detail than maybe what we did this morning. Start at the beginning.
Okay. My husband and I separated January of 2003. I was a stay-at-home mom at that time, and I didn't file for divorce till 2005. I stayed in the house that we were living in together, and he would, show up there and refuse to leave. And, at one point, I don't know, do you want that violent episode? Want me to
Please.
explain that? He had come over and wouldn't leave, trying to talk to me, and I was washing dishes by the sink, and then he grabbed my left arm and just banged me up, and there's a door right there, and I had bruises and scratches on my arm there, and as I was washing dishes, I had these sharp knives in my hand, so he turned me, and kind of shocked, and holding these knives, and then he looked, then he went and called the police on me that I was threatening him, and so once they got, I'm like, go ahead, and once they got there, they asked me then if I wanted him arrested, but the small children there, their big eyes, and I was just kind of said no, but I did go in and file a report, so it'll be on record, and I have a photo of my arm. And that was kind of ongoing, that sort of behavior. He'd come over and refused to leave, and he came over when I wasn't home and took things out of the house, all that sort of stuff. I eventually had the locks changed, but then I went back to school, and I got my RN, and all during that time, of course, you're gonna fail and all this negative stuff, and I had to always deal with that sort of thing. But then eventually I had to move out of that house, and so as far as him, coming in and that sort of thing, he didn't do that once I moved, but still lots of phone calls and, the same sort of behaviors. And, during this time, like I said, I went back to school and I started work. I never dated during all that time. And there's, lots of delays in the divorce due to certain circumstances. He didn't have a lawyer and, all kinds of things. But anyway, so we're still not actually legally divorced. But then I met someone in September, but I didn't tell him until Christmas time. And when I told him I'm dating someone, he said, you should date me. And then since then, he wasn't terrible, but a little more, talking to me about different things. Then we decided my boyfriend is moving in. I have a spare room my sister used to rent, so he's gonna move in at the end of this month. So once he found that out, things have really been escalating over the past few weeks. One day he had the kids for the weekend, and they stopped by to grab a couple things out of their room, and he's out there with no sleeves and shorts, and starts doing push-ups on the lawn, trying to impress me. And well, during this time too, he'd always, of course, try to communicate, and he'd try every way he could. And I tried emailing, back and forth for a while, but he, would use those and show the kids, and keeping. I'm sure he must be printing them off or something, keeping track of things. And telephone calls, start out okay, and then start escalating. I'd have to hang up all the time. And another time he came to get my daughter, and he was looking in the window. I asked him a couple of times, just stay in the truck when you pick them up. They know you're there, they'll come out. And if they don't know you're there, you can just phone quickly and say, I'm here. But he still would, either park in the driveway or come up to the door. And the one day he was looking in the window. 2 weeks ago, I do night shifts every second week. I do a couple of night shifts. I got off work at 7:15. I was driving home. He was on the street corner. And I don't know, I just would see him, near the house walking. My boyfriend was at my house one day. We drove past, and he was there on the street. He kind of waved, think of all these things. He called my boyfriend at work, and boyfriend, he timed it, and he kind of took a few notes, and he mostly just let him talk, and he'd ask the odd question, right? He, stayed calm and didn't want to get him worked up, but he'd ask my boyfriend, are you having sex? And he'd told him all kinds of things about my kids, that they're scared of me, and that they want to move in with him, and he said that I'm massively depressed, is the words he used, and all my family and friends know about it, and he says he vowed to stay with me in sickness and in health, and when I get better, then we'll be together again. And just those kind of things. Anyway, he had talked for 34 minutes, he said. Now I know Ted's whole life story, and he doesn't know anything about me. Like, it's just all very self-centered. It's like me, and I'm going through this, and this is what happened. And then I supervised the grade 1s and 2s at the school at lunchtime, and he came to the schoolyard. That was the date I changed. That was April 23rd. There's a fence there, and he's talking to me over the fence, and all these kids are, who are you? And he I just said a couple things, and then I had to bring the kids in, so I was trying to ignore him, and he stood on the street corner just kind of watching until I went in. And the phone calls a little more often, and if the kids would answer, I want to talk to Mom, I'd say, well, I'm busy, or I can't talk. I need to talk to Mom, just very persistent. And then if I talk to him, again, the same issues, things would escalate, and I'd usually have to hang up and, say all kinds of things. The kids think this and that. And yesterday I got off night shift again, and was at home on the phone. I was talking to the bank, actually, and then he came knocking at the door.
Tank. Sorry.
And was kind of banging on the door, and my daughter answered it. Just because I was on the phone, she said, well, she's busy, and he waited outside, probably 10, 15 minutes, and then he finally just left. And then once he got, I don't know if he was at the studio or home, probably at the studio, but he called me. And I thought I better answer or he'll come to the door again, so I answered, and, you know, kind of the same thing again. And, you know, saying he doesn't want the kids in the middle of it, but if they talk to him, then he's gonna talk to them about it and take it seriously, and, you know, just, our youngest daughter Diana was saying this and this, and so I just said, okay, goodbye, you know, and hung up, cause, you know, it was kinda getting out of control again. And then I came here today to find out some information just about, well, I had called my lawyer at one point because I could see things were escalating, and he kinda said, well, there has to be actual threat or actual violence for me to get a restraining order. But, you know, after my boyfriend had actually talked to this guy, he realized he's pretty unbalanced, so he recommended I come and talk to somebody here, so I wrote this out and I did that today. And after I got home, well, I did some things and I was lying down because I worked all night, and then my boyfriend called me around, well, just shortly before I called you, so it must have been 2:30, and he said he got to work around noon or 1 o'clock, and Ted, my ex, had been calling every half an hour, pretty much, like on the dot, asking for him, because he doesn't know his home phone number or anything, he just has his work number. I'm not quite sure how he got that either, but anyway, yeah, so we finally got a hold of him, and he was, just, you know, saying all kinds of things and getting more and more agitated and yelling at him and saying, you're having sex with my wife, and, you know, these are my kids, and if you hurt my wife and my kids, and, you know, saying these sorts of things. And my boyfriend said, you know, we're just drawing a line in the sand, and, you know, that you cannot cross. It's like, we have our life, and, you know, you have your life, and just, you know, leave it at that. But he got very, like I said, was angry and upset. And after that, I called you back, and I was quite nervous, locked all my doors, as I wasn't sure after talking to my boyfriend what he could do. And here I am.
Well, thanks for phoning me back.
Yeah.
I've just been taking notes as you've been going along, sorry.
It's okay. Just trying to have it make a little bit of sense, and I didn't say about my daughter and the whole religious thing, but, you know, that's, I guess, all part of his thinking and his manipulations that he uses.
So why did you get a divorce in the first place?
Well, he's a very controlling and manipulative person, and, you know, after, we actually had our 29th anniversary on Sunday, so I was with him for a long time before we actually separated, and, you know, just always was very controlling, manipulative. It was his way or no way, and, you know, I just started to realize that it was an abusive relationship, and I couldn't function anymore. Like he says now, oh, she's so depressed, and, you know, that's why I'm making these unreasonable choices. But, you know, when I was with him, I had some depression, just, you know, I felt so trapped and caged. And, you know, part of it was, you know, using the Christianity to keep me in control. It's like, you know, this is God's will, and, you know, that sort of thing. And so,
Part of what you told me earlier was there was a history of violence, and you told me about one incident where there were, well, I'm assuming there were more.
well, something way earlier in our marriage, and mostly like punching walls or kicking doors and that kind of thing. It wasn't, didn't hurt me. I guess those two times, well, a few other times, just kind of little things like, just poke me really hard in the side, that type of thing. Not beating up or. And before we actually separated, he was sleeping in a different bedroom, and the one door, I would lock them, but the one door, if you kind of banged on it, would open. 1 o'clock in the morning, bang into my room and sit there and talk, like, we gotta reconcile, blah, 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 I would just, if I tried to leave, he'd follow me, wouldn't let me leave. One time I was trying to drive away and he stood in the door and just backing up with the door open and him kind of hanging on, just all this kind of stuff, and just, so I knew, well, if I try to leave, he'll just follow me everywhere, so I just kind of, it was dark, just plugged my ears and waited till he stopped talking and he finally left, just, those kind of behaviors. It was more the manipulation and control, that sort of abuse, making me feel like I was worthless, and like I said, when I went back to school, you're gonna fail, you're like your mom, and just these kind of things, just to put me down all the time.
What did he mean by that when he said you're like your mom?
Because she would, suffer from depression. My dad was sick when I was growing up, had MS, and she went through depressed periods, and it was some of my issues I had with her was I felt like I was neglected growing up, and so he would kind of use that. I feel like I'm a very good mother, but that's another thing he said to my boyfriend. She's acting like her mother and neglecting the kids, and they're scared of her, and this sort of thing. And he brought that up again today to my boyfriend. It's like, all the kids, and this and that, and she's depressed, and my boyfriend just says, well, we spend a lot of time together and I don't see that, so you think you know my wife better than I do? I've known her for 33 years, just this kind of stuff, so.
What is your boyfriend's name?
It's, his full name, Chesney, Chesney. Generally just goes by Ches, Williams.
And how old is he, or what is his date of birth?
November 19. Not sure about the year. He's 52. Whatever that works out to be.
It's November what?
19th.
Okay. And where does he live?
It's in Sherwood Park.
Do you know the address?
No. I don't know the exact address. He's always called him at work, because that's the number he knew.
And a phone number for him?
His home phone number, 417-1661. No, I'm doing it backwards, sorry. You have speed dial. 416-1771. And then at home, 446-6413.
Okay, so the 416-1771.
That's his home number.
Okay, and the 446.
Yeah, that's his cell. 446-6413.
And you said the telephone calls between you and your ex-husband were escalating. What do you mean by escalating? What does he say on the phone?
Well, it usually starts out like, I want to talk about the summer schedule. And I said, well, just, have it printed out and send it with the kids. Oh, I don't want to send stuff with the kids. That's putting them in the middle. And so, you just have to say, give this to Mom. And then, it's hard to remember and describe, but, so is Ches still moving in, and you'll just start asking more and more personal stuff. And, I try to either avoid it or I'll just just answer simply and whatever. And then, oh, the kids don't want this to happen, and you know, they're all upset and they talk to me, and the older kids are, you know, worried and concerned about it, and they're gonna come and talk to you, and I think what he's saying about my youngest daughter. Although usually once he starts getting worked up, I just cut him off. So,
What do you mean? That's what I'm wondering though. What is he saying when he gets worked up? What kinds of things?
Mostly about what the kids are saying about me or thinking about me. You know, the kids say to me that, you know, they're scared of you and they want to move in with me, and what else? I'll think of it all later.
Yeah, that's how it happens. But there must be something he's saying, like, are you hanging up on him at that point? Or is he saying something else that makes you...
Yeah, like I said, he ends up, my boyfriend from work, I call him from work. I don't know if something else happened, but anyway. Well, this is the thing, like I said, all these years, he's kinda manipulated and used certain things, and that's the one way he kinda still gets under my skin was with the kids, you know, like thinking back over the years and how he undermined me and my confidence. Like I say, when I went to school, oh, you're gonna fail, you know, this sort of thing, and I've never been a really confident person as it was, so I would tend to kind of almost believe it, and then when he'd say, oh, kids are thinking this or saying that, I right away look at myself and think, well, are they thinking this, and are they that way, and you know, is there something that I'm doing wrong? And you know, I'm right away kind of internalize things and tend to blame myself. I mean, I'm getting less and less that way because I realize what he's doing, but you know, it's kind of been the pattern over all these years, and he knows that he can get under my skin by bringing up the kids. Like our oldest son says he's, you know, quite a bit like me in nature and quiet and kind of introvert, right? And he said, oh, Matthew, what's his name, is so depressed, and you know, and I called him, like, oh, how you doing? And, oh, I'm fine. Oh, are you depressed? Oh no, I'm just grumpy, he said. You know, it's just like taking little things and just twisting it and blowing it out of proportion and using it against me. You know, sometimes it might sound simple and stupid just to say it out loud, but because it was so much part of the abuse and part of the thinking and part of the control, you know, he still could get under my skin, right? And and I worry about it. Oh, is he okay? And then, you know, my other older sons, oh, they're gonna come talk to you, and they're so worried. And then I talk to them. They're like, no, I haven't even talked to Dad for 2 weeks, and you know, just this sort of thing. And my third son, he's married, and he said, no, you have to live your life and make your decisions. We just want to stay out of it. That's really all he told me. And when I say this to him, well, that was the one thing he said on the phone where he started getting all worked up. He's like, you know, so you calling me a liar, and you know, that the kids didn't really say this to me, and just, you know, basically turning everything that it's my problem and my fault, and that I'm lying and I'm, you know, the one with the problem.
So you have how many kids altogether?
Altogether, 7.
You have 7 kids, you and your ex-husband. And Matthew is 21?
Matthew is 28.
Okay.
Joseph is 26. I think I'm getting, actually, he turned 27, and Mike is 25. Joseph and Micah are both married. And Micah has a son. And then the 4 that are at home are 19, 17, 13 on Saturday, and an 11-year-old.
Busy.
Yes. And that was another issue. He didn't believe in birth control. And I was like, God gives us what he will. And I was the one at home left raising them all with no money.
It's a job all in itself for sure. Probably 3 or 7.
Yeah. And, you know, during the whole separation thing, he said, well, we have to reconcile. And we went to different psychologists and different marriage counseling. We tried a few different ones. And the one psychologist had done this long test, right? Like, it took over an hour, I think, to fill it all out. He claims I'm so depressed, but, didn't show anything on there. The psychologist showed me the graph. That's my stress levels. I mean, it literally went off the chart, but it didn't say anything that I was, massively depressed or, he would definitely not give any diagnosis of that. But, in other ones I've talked to, it's like, well, in your situation, it's natural to be depressed. Like, you're in this horrible situation, you're feel trapped and caged in, and it's like, you wouldn't be normal if you didn't have some depression. So, now the past 2 years or more, things have slowly gotten better and better, and definitely not depressed.
No, it sounded like earlier that without this problem, you would be pretty happy.
Yeah, I mean, he never was a good provider. We had all these kids, absolutely no money. We never had our own house. So I went back to school, got I'm a registered nurse now. I bought my own house last year. After over 20 years, he couldn't buy a house, and I bought one within 4 years. It's like,
Good for you.
I talked to these different psychologists, or even my friends, and they're like, oh, you should be so proud of yourself, but I tend to still be a little bit in that mindset of, I don't know.
You should be proud of yourself. You got out of an abusive relationship. You went back to school after how many years of being out of school?
Over 20. I didn't even finish high school.
That's no easy task at all. You then went out and got a job after being home raising 7 kids for 20 years. And just like you said, within 4 years, you bought your own house. You have a lot to be proud of. A lot.
Yeah.
Made a lot of good decisions there.
Yeah,
So
and the funny thing is, it almost seems like he still has a certain control over me as far as that thinking. It is a lot better than it was, but
The only control he has over you is the control you give him.
yeah, that's what I've been told many times. But
It's true, though. He doesn't have any more control over you than what you allow him to have.
yeah,
And that's why you're here today, right? Because you don't want him to have control over you.
yeah. Like I told you earlier, I've never really been a really fearful person, but after that issue today with my boyfriend, I was kind of nervous.
So that leads me to my next question. What do you think he'll do? What are you afraid he'll do?
Show up at the house, refuse to leave, and try to talk to me. Like, his talking is convincing me that he's right and I'm wrong. And refuse to leave. And I guess it's in him to get violent, so.
That's what I'm wondering. If that's what you were thinking. When you told me before he called your boyfriend the first time, when did that happen?
That was about 2 weeks ago or so. I didn't remember the exact date. I don't know if my boyfriend remembers or not.
Okay.
Yeah, it was around 2 weeks or so.
And what was the gist of that conversation? they had?
They had basically, well, I'm only letting him move in because I want money and I'm really depressed and he'll find that out. And the kids are scared of me and don't want him to move, don't want Ches to move in. And he told them a lot about himself, like basically his life story. I mean, he's had some depression issues too over the years. There's actually mental illness in his family too, but you know, he had gained a lot of weight after we separated, and I think it was my niece's wedding. I was sitting there trying to remember. We were at a wedding anyway. Normally I hardly ever see him, and he had a long stringy beard and long hair, and he was overweight, and I was just kinda, you know. And then the kid said to him, "Oh, Mom thinks you're disgusting," or I don't know what exactly, something basically to that effect. And so he, you know, then he started losing weight, and, you know, he cut off his hair for my second son got married last July, cut off his hair for the wedding, and, you know, I think that was part of the issue with the push-ups on the lawn. It's like, oh, look at me, you know. I'm this hot guy now. Come running into my arms. But, you know, and then he emailed me and said, "Oh, I love you, and, you know, it seems strange after all this time, but I want to be a better person for you, and you motivate me to be better, and that's why I'm, you know, getting in shape and losing weight," you know, just these kind of things. I mean, he'll often would say that to me, you know, I love you, and I'll try to say, well, it's not love, you know, the way you're treating me. But of course he doesn't see that. If we got off topic or what, we started out talking about that phone call, but.
It's okay. Something else you mentioned there, just briefly, the studio. Where is that, or what do you mean by that?
Well, it's the Turner Guitar Studio here on 50th
Okay.
Street in town.
Like you told me before. He owns that, right?
Yeah, he started that business just when my youngest daughter was born. Yeah, he actually lived in there for a while after we were separated because he had no money to get a place. But
And something else you mentioned was emails. You said you used to communicate via email.
yeah.
What would he say in there?
Well, like I said, those kind of things that, I love you, this or that, or, you know, it would be very, like, either one way, you know, oh, I love you, and you're right, what I do to you is wrong, I won't contact you anymore, I'll leave you alone, like, you know, goodbye, I'll never talk to you again. And then within a day he's phoning or emailing again, you know. So I emailed him back. It's like, well, it's kind of funny how, you know, you could say you're not gonna contact me, and then here you are, you know. And then it'll be the other extreme, you know, accusing me of things or saying I'm doing this and that to the kids, or we could reconcile if we'd go to counseling. If you only really would listen to me, you'd understand me, and then we'd be together, you know, just very manic almost. Oh, I love you, and you're right, and I'll leave you alone, and then, you know, you're the one who has the problem, and, you know, on the other end. So then he mentioned last week or something when he called that, he'd shown the kids some of these emails, and you know, kind of trying to use it against me as far as, you know, they see what you really like, you know, because they saw those emails, and he accuses me of putting the kids in the middle, but, you know, then he keeps involving them in these little things, so.
You seemed pretty frightened when I talked to you on the phone, just probably 20 minutes before you came down here. You said you had locked all your doors and weren't really comfortable going outside.
you know, like I said, these things have been kind of escalating over the last few weeks, and then, you know, my boyfriend calls and says he's yelling at him and, you know, almost, you know, threatening him. It's like, well, this is my family, and, you know, you don't hurt my wife and don't hurt my kids. And then the dog kind of started barking while I was on the phone, so I'm looking out the windows. You know, I was like, is he showing up at my doorstep? And you know, Chez had said to him, you know, there's going to be a line here, and if you cross it, there'll be consequences. So I just wondered. I don't know if you had talked to him at that point or not. I hadn't heard from you, but so I was, you know, nervous he'd show up and, you know, want to talk to me.
That's kind of what we talked about this morning, right? I said, Chez isn't going to be able to stay out of this forever.
Yeah.
Because he's being brought into the middle of it.
Mhm. Yeah, like it or not.
Yeah. Can I look at that again for a minute? This is the letter of things that you typed up that you showed me this morning. Yeah, this one on the 27th of April, you wrote here that you got off the night shift at 7:15 and he was standing on the street corner by work.
Mhm.
Would there be any other reason why he would be standing on the street corner by your work other than to...
Well, if you ask him about it, he'll probably say, I was out on a walk, you know, because he has been exercising and whatever. But when I drove out, like it wasn't right by work, it was kind of around the corner where I drive out. But I'd seen him from a distance, and I didn't realize it was him at first. And I could see both directions on the road, and I thought it was a pedestrian. I remember thinking, what's he doing? You know, there's no vehicles, and you just cross, you know. I didn't realize it was him till I got closer, and he's just right on the corner there, and, you know, waved at me. I just found it odd, and, you know, at the time, it's, you know, like I said earlier, it's all these little things that individually he can explain away, and even myself, it's kind of, well, just a little thing, but just all together, it's kind of, you know, showing a pattern. And
You said on the 28th of April he was by your house. What did you mean by that when you say by your house?
I live over by the rec center there, and he was just walking. Like I said, I'm not sure how he found out where Chez worked, because my son Micah knew, because his mother-in-law was looking for a vehicle, and so I kind of told him, oh, he's at this dealership. But then when I asked him, he said, no, I didn't mention it to him. The only way I can think he knew was he saw Chez's car was parked in front of my house, and it had like the dealership plates and the thing on it. Like, I can't think how else he would have known, because the other kids don't really even know where he works. So.
What's this summer schedule thing that he keeps bringing up?
Yeah. Well, you know, in the summer he gets the kids more, and the last few years he didn't really work all summer. He'd go backpacking most of the summer, and he'd take the kids sometimes. So this year he said he's working more, and he just wanted to know, like, he sounds like he wants them almost every weekend, for sure, every long weekend, he said. And so, you know, I just said to him, like, normally he'll print it off on the computer and then send it over. So I told him I'll do that again, but he was kind of refusing to. He wanted me to come to the studio to pick that up and pick up some of the negatives from old photos that I had given him. You know, he was refusing just to send them with the kids. Then he kind of uses that as a wedge, right? He'll call and say, we gotta talk about the schedule, and then it kind of, you know, goes from there.
So you had written here on the bottom, there's a history of violence towards me and others.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by others? Or what?
Yeah. Well, the church we belong to is out in Warburg, and he got into just a couple of, well, one time they were playing soccer and I got mad at a friend of my son. I wasn't there, but just, I don't know if he just really pushed him over or hit him or, something. There was kind of a big uproar about the whole thing. And then another time he was on argument with the guy, grabbed him by the collar and kind of, it's those sorts of things, not, pulling a gun on anybody or anything. But,
Okay. Is there anything else you can think of that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. Mostly, I think the whole spiritual, side of it. He still takes the kids to church. I don't go to that church anymore. But just, the way he'll present things like, I'm making these bad choices and I'm a sinner. And my youngest daughter was quite upset a couple weeks ago. We went for a walk and she started asking me about me believing in God, and I was just upfront with her about my experience, and she's basically saying, well, isn't it better to say you believe in God, and then if it's true, then you're safe. And if it's not true, oh well, it wouldn't matter anyway. That's basically the gist of what she said.
She's 11?
Yeah.
I remember being exactly where she is.
Yeah. And so I just explained to her that, I'm not going to follow God out of fear or guilt anymore. It's like it has to be a true relationship with me and God, and just because somebody tells me, or even God himself, it's like, I'm not just going to do it out of fear. And she's, crying and upset, and I'm not going to be in heaven, and she wants me to be, and it just breaks my heart that a child has to, think that way about her mother. And we have a really close relationship.
Did you get a chance to explain it to her?
Yeah, to the best of my ability. She still has her beliefs about what is right, she gets it from the church and, of course, from her dad about, it's a fairly conservative church, so, they're vegetarians, so, I've been eating meat the last few years, so it's things like that, or wearing jewelry.
That's what makes you a sinner, according to him?
Yeah.
Wearing jewelry and eating meat?
No, part of it, yeah. Plus now I have a boyfriend and I'm still married, so I'm committing adultery, I guess. But, yeah, that stuff. And she's 11, and so to her, or even me wearing makeup, it's vanity, she says to me. I said, well, I just believe in taking care of myself and looking my best. I said, it's not any different than brushing your hair and braiding it. And she has long hair and she braids it and whatever. So it's just, that kind of thinking, and I think she's torn because, obviously she loves her dad and she loves me, and so on the one hand she's with him, she's getting a certain message, and then she comes and sees me, but, like I said, Ches has a degree in psychology, and once he talked to my ex, he said, it's amazing those kids are as well adjusted as they are, but I think it's because I do have a really good relationship with them. Like I said, my mom was depressed when I was growing up, and I feel like I was neglected, and that affected my confidence, and that's partly why I ended up with Ted in the first place. But anyway, when I became a mother, I was determined, these kids are the most important thing, and they're going to know that they're loved, and so this is how I raised my kids, and, I'm open with them, and, when Ted says stuff like they're scared of me and want to move out, I ask him, it's like, oh no, I love you, and I want to stay here, and, but he's very leading in the way he'll say things. That's kind of, he does it with me, but he also does it with them, with, saying, oh, the kids came to me and said they're scared of you and this and that, but when I asked them, no, he brought up the topic about moving out. She said, well, he asked if we wanted to move in with him. And she just said, well, maybe half-time, just, kids with their dad, they won't wanna hurt him.
Right.
And they're very good and respectful kids, so, like I try to say to them, when he'd always talk about me and bring up topics, I'd say, well, just tell him you don't wanna talk about it. But, they have a hard time saying, don't talk about that, or,
Yeah.
changing the subject, just, 'cause they are respectful and good kids, so, I
Well, Bob, I'm wondering if
feel bad that they're in that position, but,
bail money?
well, I don't know, like I say, he's always kind of gotten under my skin as far as undermining, what kind of mother I was, but, it was Mother's Day on this past Sunday. My 17-year-old son, he, need to turn this thing off or something.
Did you tell him you were coming down here?
No, I didn't.
Cause he might be getting
He might
worried
be
about you.
worried, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll get him in a second. Let's see.
Sorry, I made you lose your train of thought. You were saying about Mother's Day.
Oh,
So-
yes. So my 17-year-old son, he's kind of like me in nature too, a little more quiet. He's a good kid, but he got a picture of himself and his girlfriend, put it in a frame, and then he wrote me a little poem. He basically said, I'm a person of few words like you, but I'm the man I am today because of you, and I love you, right? And so then my daughter made me this little coupon book with all these little coupons that I can, that she'll do for me. And it's like, I guess they're not scared of me, and they love me and want me to be happy, right? So they just are torn in the middle of all of this.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail right on the head, right? They're torn. When they're talking to their dad, they don't want to say anything that upsets him or makes him feel bad, nor do they want to do that with you. And the worst thing I think for them is having to choose, or having to make one feel better or worse than the other.
Exactly. Especially the youngest, they still want their parents to be together, in spite of, I think she understands to a certain degree why I made the choices I do, but, still, that's what kids want.
Yeah, and I don't think she sees it on the level that you do. I didn't. When my parents split up, I didn't see any of it until much, much later. And now I can go back and I can remember some of what my mom had told me about them fighting. There was never violence, but there was a lot of arguing and yelling and just not the time there, and they just kind of grew apart, and they still get along. So there was never that issue of us in the middle. I mean, to a degree, maybe sometimes, but not so much. They still could talk to each other, and none of this stuff.
Yeah, and see, that's one thing he'll always say is, we should be friends, and he'll say that to the kids, and to them it's like, well, that sounds good, you should be friends. But, whenever I try to keep things simple, and sure, I can be civil, I can say, okay, pick up the kids at 2, but when it escalates every time and he's attacking me and my character, so I just have to cut it all off, just cut off communication. That's, been my only option.
And that's not a bad thing. It's just unfortunate, right?
Yeah, but then, from the kid's point of view,
They're not-
he's trying to be nice and he's trying to be reasonable, and I'm the one who's unreasonable and nasty.
Because they're not seeing all of it, right? You're not giving them the information, but he is.
Well, that's the way it's been. It was that way in the church. 'Cause I'm this quiet one, and I was, no confidence. And he was the talker, right? So they'd always hear all his side, not my side. So,
And it sounds like, from what you're telling me, he's doing the same thing with the religion, right? He's
yeah.
using that to tell her all of this different stuff, and she's not getting your side of the story, so all she's got is this. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for her to have a different perspective, right? Even within religion, there's different religions, there's different takes on different things, and
that's what I'm trying to teach her is, God doesn't say you have to do it this, and or else, it's, I lived with that way for enough years, but, we each have our path, and he allows us choices, and, that whole personal freedom to, follow God and to make our choices, and, if to me, it's like, well, if God's gonna damn me to hell for that, then okay. I guess that's the way it has to be, right? You know, it's.
I'm even further the other way. Or maybe even further on your side, so, yeah.
Yeah. So,
I'll be driving the wagon. If we're going, I'll be leading the way. I don't think I have anything else to ask you. I think I have everything. I'll go turn this off. If you want to give him a call and let him know that you're going to be okay. He's probably getting nervous. It's 15:57 hours.
There's a call from home, that might be my daughter. I left a little note, so I said I'm going out for a bit because they're home from school now.
Okay. So I'll be right back.
He says, call me when you're done, so he must know.
Just give him a call and let him know. Just give me about 2 seconds and I'll turn this off and you can have him.